Good morning. Thanks for making a snowy journey today. If you want to move closer in, it's warmer up here. Just saying, there'll be many opportunities for you to gently find a place to sit up front. Well, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. My name is Janet Evans. I'm a member of the UUC board, and I am very pleased to be your worship leader for today's service. Each week we gather in community to refocus on the things which are most important in our lives, remembering who we are and what we are for. It is a serious task. We do it joyfully and playfully and intentionally. It is a time for spiritual practice, for our essential work as human beings. It's a time to return to the wells from which we draw meaning and sustenance. And welcome to those joining us online. It might be a bigger group today. I have to say, online is a wonderful option on a snowy morning. This congregation is all of us, together in person and online. If you're a new online visitor, you'll find a link to our visitor form in the video description, and we'd really love to connect with you. It's a busy season, and I have a few announcements to share. At 12:15 today, just right back in this room, the Strategic Initiative Committee is giving a deep dive into the data gathered over the last year on the possibilities and options, resources, and challenges as we consider the next step for our church building. For online viewers, join the meeting just using the same link provided for the online church service. Now, this forum is one of several that are planned to get us ready for the congregational meeting that's in 2 weeks on Sunday, November 12th. You can find dates for other forums and more information on this handout. That's right, I've seen it up on the table, and it'll be at the information table back in the coffee room. Saturday, November 11th is our annual church live auction and lasagna dinner from 6 to 8 p.m. Please visit the information table during coffee hour to buy tickets and to learn more about our amazing online auction. Now finally, David has an announcement to share.
Well, welcome again, nearby neighbors and snow drivers and four-wheel vehicle owners. The announcement that I have to share is bittersweet, and many of you may have seen the news, but our membership coordinator, Irene Kirschenbaum, has accepted a new job with E-Town, and her last Sunday with us is going to be January 7th. And this is, on the one hand, so good for Irene, and on the other hand, sad, bittersweet for us. She's been here about 15 months at this point, and in that time, so much has happened. 36 folks have joined the congregation. We overhauled the name tags. We started the First Friday community night potlucks, and the list goes on and on and on there. But the thing that I am most grateful for of everything that Irene has brought, and the thing also that we'll be looking for when we look to rehire someone to fill that position, is this deep in the bones sense that that belonging, that connection, that relationship is not really her work to do. That for Irene, the work is fostering that relationship and connection among, everybody else in the congregation, among all of you. And for her, and what so many of the conversations that we've had over this last year have looked like, is her saying, oh, this person got connected with this person, and these people went to dinner with those people, and both of us saying, yes, that is exactly how it works. I'm grateful for that, and growing and reinforcing that culture here, which we had already, but it's a beautiful thing to see it deepen. It's too early right now today to say goodbye exactly. We have some time still, but I hope you'll join me in offering a word of thanks and appreciation to Irene. Oh, friends, as the wheel of the year turns, the days are growing short out here. And we gather this morning, to do the hard work of facing loss, of acknowledging our grief, of acknowledging the reality that we are a grieving people, though we don't always name it. And we may walk through the world stuffing that down. We may walk through the world feeling those tears and just putting them in a package and putting that on the shelf and promising ourselves we'll come back to it again later. Well, here we are. On this All Souls Day of Remembrance, we call to mind all those people now gone who have lit the flame within us and whose memory still feeds the fire of our lives. They were grandparents and relatives we only knew as children, and they were dear friends we had always known. They were dear friends discovered only in the last years of their lives. They were our teachers in the classroom who seemed impossibly old when we were young. And they were our mentors and the ones who gave wise counsel. They were the people we could confess our hopes and our fears to, and they would listen. Listen and listen, the friends that we could cry with, even when we didn't want to let the tears out. These were the people we chose to spend our lives with, the people we chose to make a life with. And we gather this morning to do that hard work of facing loss, of acknowledging our grief, and the reality that we are grieving people. At our earlier service today, Rachel said all of that in story form, and she's here to share that same story with us.
Hi, I'm Rachel Alba. I'm the Director of Religious Education, and I'm going to share with you the story of The Bottle and the Heart, and I think it's by Oliver Jeffries. It's by the same person who wrote The Day the Crayons Quit, if you're familiar with that story. There was once a little girl, and she was full of wonder and joy and creativity. She was the sort of girl who, when she would walk along the beach, she would find the most perfect swirly shell and imagine the life of the snail who lived in that shell. When she saw clouds in the sky, she would make up brilliant stories. And whenever there was a puddle, she was the first to splash in that puddle. One day, she came home and found an empty chair. This was a chair that her most favorite person had always been sitting in, but they were gone. And she felt a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And so she decided the best thing to do to make sure that she would never have to feel that way again would be to take her heart out of her chest and place it in a jar. From there, she covered the jar and made sure it would never be able to open again. And she made it really, really hard to open, because she really did not want to feel that bad ever again. And she wore it around her neck, because you still need your heart. She just didn't want it in her body. And she went through life, and she went to school, and eventually she went to work. She would have dinner with friends. She would go to parties and celebrate things, and just had a little less joy and a little less creativity and a little less fun. And then one day she decided to go for a walk on the beach. So she was walking along the beach, and she almost stepped on the most perfect swirly shell. But she didn't even notice. The clouds were telling brilliant stories. She didn't care. And then a little girl came up to her and said, "Ma'am, Do you think elephants swim in this ocean? And she paused. And she didn't really know what to do. She needed a little bit more joy and a little more creativity and a little more wonder in order to be able to entertain the question. And she looked down at her heart in its jar, and she realized she would need to get her heart out in order to think about swimming elephants. And this is where I need some of your help. I need someone to play the little girl. Sharon? So she asked the little girl, "Can you hold the jar so I can try to open it?"
Sure, I can hold the jar that has your heart in it.
And also, as we know, little girls aren't necessarily the best people to be in charge of holding a glass jar. So the woman looked at the other people along the beach and said, "Can anyone else help her hold the jar for me?"
Janet?
Perhaps Jack? Anyone else feeling brave this morning? Paula? Thanks, Johnny. And then can we move the jar slightly closer to me so I can still have the mic? Thanks. And so with the help of her team, she started to open the jar. And sometimes it was easy, like that. That was pretty easy. And other times, it was a little slower. And a little more sticky. And sometimes she just had to stop and take a breath. Or get a fist bump. But eventually, she was able to open the jar. And she stuck her hand in and got back her heart. Thank you. And she put it back in her chest. And whoa, was that a lot to feel. At first, it was too much. She couldn't do much of anything. But she felt her feet in the sand still, and she looked at the little girl, and she just considered, why and how would an elephant swim in the ocean? Would it use its nose like a snorkel? Would it use its ears as like ways to swim? And she looked at the little girl and she laughed. And then she noticed the perfect swirly shell that was almost under her foot. And she imagined what that snail's life may have been. And then as she continued walking down the beach, she looked up at the sky and at the clouds and told entire novels worth of stories about swimming elephants. And when she came home that night, instead of just skirting by that empty chair, she stopped. And she sat in it. And as she let her body be held by that chair, she remembered what it felt like to be held by the person who used to sit in that chair. The way they would stroke her hair to comfort her. The way they made her favorite soup on cold, snowy days. And all the love that was shared between them. And so even though her heart was maybe a little heavier in that moment, in general, it broke open, and she had more joy, and she had more wonder, and she had more creativity. Thank you.
It's work to do that, to open your heart that way. And on a wet and cold and snowy Sunday morning like this, when you look at the calendar and there is a long slog ahead through cold and darkness, facing grief is heavy work. At this time of year, I listened to a lot of New England folk music. I grew up in Boston. I grew up listening to singers like Gordon Bach and Stan Rogers singing about life in northern New England, in the maritime provinces, fishermen on rough seas, farmers scratching out a living, and most of the songs are basically tragic, but among that, among all those stark facts of living and dying, there's also just this gentle perseverance, a beautiful and a simple call to endure, to keep showing up. That's the message I listen for in this cold season. And there's a song by Gordon Bach. Leo's going to play it in just a minute. It's awfully good to have you here this morning. A song whose chorus concludes simply, "If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time, the world is always turning toward the morning." And the singer wrote, he said, explaining the origin of the song, he said, one of the things that provoked this song was a letter last November from a friend who'd had a very difficult year and was looking for the courage to keep on plowing into it. Those times you lift your eyes unto the hills, as they say, but the hills of northern New England, hills of Colorado in November, can be about as much comfort as a cold crowbar. You have to look ahead a little bit then and realize that all the hills and the trees and the flowers will still be there come spring, usually more permanent than your troubles. And if your courage occasionally fails, that's okay too, he says. Nobody expects you to be as strong or as old as the land. If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time, this world is always turning toward morning.
When the deer is bedded down, and the bear is gone to ground, and the northern goose has wandered off to warmer baying sound, it's so easy in the cold to feel the darkness of the year, and the heart is growing lonely for the morning. Oh, my Joni, don't you know that the stars are swinging low, and the seas are rolling easy as they did so long ago? If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time that the world is always turning toward the morning. When October's growing thin and November's coming home, you'll be thinking of the season and the sad things that you've seen. And you hear that old wind walking, hear him singing high and thin. You could swear he's out there singing of your sorrow. Oh, my Joni, don't you know that the stars are swinging low, and the seas are rolling easy as they did so long ago? If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time that the world is always turning toward the morning. So the darkness falls around you, and you hear the north wind blow, and you hear him call your name out as he walks the brittle snow. That old wind don't mean you trouble. He don't care or even know. He's just walking down the darkness toward the morning. Oh, my Joni, don't you know that the stars are swinging low and the seas are rolling easy as they did so long ago? If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time that the world is always turning toward the morning. It's a pity we don't know what the little flowers know. They can't face the cold November, they can't take the wind and snow. They put their glories all behind them, bow their heads and let it go. But you know they'll be there shining in the morning. Oh, my Joni, don't you know that the stars are swinging low and the seas are rolling easy as they did so long ago? If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time that the world is always turning toward the morning. Oh, my Joni, don't you know that the days are rolling slow and the winter's walking easy as he did so long ago? And if that wind should come to ask you, why is my Joni weeping so? Won't you tell him that you're weeping for the morning? Oh, my Joni, don't you know that the stars are swinging low and the seas are rolling easy as they did so long ago? If I had a thing to give you, I would tell you one more time that the world is always turning toward the morning.
If you're joining us online, please get a candle or a chalice ready to light. And today, you get 2-for-1 Evanses. I'd like to invite Bob Evans to light this morning's chalice.
Well, hello all on this wintry day. And a little digression. I'm a little bit discombobulated now because part of the soundtrack of my life is Gordon Bach and Stan Rogers and all of that genre, and it just brings back a flood of memories when I hear that song. And I've been a member here since the mid-'70s. I don't actually recall when I actually joined. I look out now and see you all, members of my extended family, different minds, different histories, different reasons to be here. My reason for being here is that I was in a literature class at CU, expounding on my views, and somebody, I no longer remember who, told me I should go visit the UUs, and this started the journey with UUCB. I was quite active in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. My life had had some bumps and the parting of ways and then finding a new partner. Janet and I were married here 34 years ago. My career took me away from Boulder, sometimes for months. One of those trips was to Antarctica and then New Zealand. When I got off the ice and went to the project on the South Island, I discovered that people in the church had sent me letters, and those were waiting for me. As my career progressed, more time was spent away. The weekends began to be filled with the adventure of building a cabin up near Timberline, 7 miles outside of Fairplay. This cabin became a weekend retreat, and the times at UUCB dropped off, and finally mostly ceased, sporadic. Then I got older, and retirement came. My life changed, and those changes came the realization there was a need for community in my life. These times for celebration, for mourning, and transitions are best shared. So in 2017, I came back, and I'm glad I'm back. Now, it's the season of All Souls Day, and in lighting the chalice, I will use the words of Florence Caplow. As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision. Their courage lives in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us. Thank you.
We now invite all those gathered in your various locations to join together in fellowship and community as we all say aloud together our congregation's covenant. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
You join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation, sense of stillness. Oh, no, am I jumping the gun? I am. Should we join in a spirit of singing instead? Let's sing. Yeah, let's sing some prayer. Let's sing some meditation. Stay right in that place. And close your eyes. If you like, rest your body. And begin with a breath all together. There's a shift, and a subtle one, an internal one that comes sometimes listening to music, hearing it like that. A sort of a shift in attention, a shift in intention. Maybe it feels to you like a relaxing, like receiving it, like stepping into a pool and letting yourself float inside it. All of that and more and different kinds, all of that is the work of spiritual practice. That sense of tuning, of attuning, attention and intention, of deep listening to everything from outside yourself and all those resonances from inside yourself. Our words for meditation this week are by the poet Warson Shire. Our words on this difficult and this bloody week. This called What They Did Yesterday Afternoon. They set my aunt's house on fire. I cried the way women on TV do, folding at the middle like a 5-pound note. I called the boy who used to love me, tried to okay my voice. I said, hello. He said, Warson, what's wrong? What's happened? I've been praying, and these are what my prayers look like. Dear God, I come from 2 countries. One is thirsty, the other is on fire. Both need water. Later that night, I held an atlas in my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world, and whispered, where does it hurt? It answered, everywhere. Everywhere. We trace our fingers across maps of the world, Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, Maine. Here in Boulder, where the snow is falling on people with no home to go home to. We trace fingers across the maps of our heart's grief and injury. Pain and loss in those scarred places that still hurt old hurts in a time like this. And our hope and our prayer is to go gentle in this world, to go gentle with ourselves, not to argue against the maps of pain through which we move, but to unfold also an atlas of love, to remember that the world is more than hurting. It doesn't make the hurt less sharp. Nonetheless, the world is more than hurting. Be together in silence for a moment. Amen. In a few moments, we'll do an All Souls ritual. I'll invite folks to come forward and light candles, so we won't do our usual stones. But I want to lift up in the love and the celebration of this community, Carol and Reed. Their granddaughter, Evelyn, married on a beautiful ranch in Carbondale a couple of weeks ago. to a fellow ski patroller and Grand Canyon river guide. We are with you in that joy and delight. And for all those joys and all those sorrows that we hold in silence. Amen.
The fallen leaves drift by my window. The falling leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter's song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall, since you went away, the days grow long, and soon I'll hear old winter's song. But I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall, but I miss you most of all, my darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
You can feel time passing now in early sunsets and the sharp cold in the mornings. You can feel time passing in the silence of snow. We're moving into darkness, even as the leaves are still bursting into brilliance. Yellow is raining down and becoming dirt for next spring's growing. We're moving through the wheel of our years, bound by our common human knowing that we are alive and that we have to die. We pause now together. There's a beginning and an ending for everything that's alive, and in between is living. We pause to mark the turning of the years, and remember those we've loved and lost, and honor them and love them still. And we gather also to hold our own grief of other losses, of disability and illness, of lost possibilities. Come to hold our grief as individuals and as a community. We honor that today, that we might be made whole by remembering our brokenness. We honor that today by opening those jars in which we lock our hearts, even though it hurts. And as we remember those who died and acknowledge our grief in all its varied, its complex forms, we also remember our own mortality, that we might live more boldly, more fully, that our lives might honor our loved ones. There are empty seats among us since we gathered for this service 1 year ago. And in particular, I'm looking back to the empty chair where Betty Skip sat. And there are empty seats in your own lives. Siblings and parents, friends and relatives, co-workers and neighbors, people who have passed from this place and left their memories to our care. They rest now, and the hard work of living is ours. But in the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. And so as the music begins in just a moment, I invite anyone who wishes to come forward to add a photo to our altar if you've brought one, to silently light a candle for your own beloved dead.
Me, though I have to say goodbye, remember me. Don't let it make you cry, for even when I'm far away, I'll hold you in my heart. I'll sing a secret song for you each night we are apart. Recuérdeme, hoy me tengo que ir, mi amor, recuérdeme. No llores, por favor, te llevo en mi corazón y sé que me tendrás. A solas en te canta, no regresar. Remember me, though I have to travel far, remember me. Each time you hear a sad guitar, just know that I am with you the only way that I can be. Until you're in my arms again, remember me. Recuérdeme, hoy me tengo que ir, mi amor, recuérdeme. No llores, por favor, te llevo en mi corazón y cerca me tendrás. A solas yo te cantaré soñando en regresar. Recuérdeme, aunque tenga que emigrar, recuérdame. Si mi guitarra oyes llorar, ella con su triste canto te acompañará hasta que en mis brazos estés. Remember me.
the mother of a child who has died, comes to the Buddha, the story says, and she asks him, why? Why did this happen? How could this happen? Restore my child to me. Let him live again. And the Buddha replies, return to me with a mustard seed from the household of a family that has known no suffering. And it seems maybe like a cruel thing to say, like a joke, if you hear that as motivated by anything less than the deepest empathy and compassion and knowledge of what suffering means. Because in the story, the mother does just that. She goes from one house to the next, asking for a home that has not known loss. And everywhere she stops, it's the same story in 1,000 faces. Everyone she speaks with has lost someone, and I imagine for some it was also a child taken too soon. And for some, it was the people they loved taken by addiction. And for some, maybe it was an aged parent or partner, a beloved friend. Maybe it was someone who had been abandoned by ones who claimed to love them. And for all of them, it was too soon, and for all of them, there was no explanation. There was no reason or point or purpose, and it happened. I see this woman so clearly moving from house to house in the village, walking while golden leaves fall down around her, sitting on front porches and in kitchens as the day gets long and the lights get low. I see her listening for hours and hours to stories of loss and weeping everywhere. And as the tears go, a piece of her sadness leaves her, the sharpness of that pain, the sharpness of loss, undiminished. But her own sorrow mingles in this vast human river, and her own grief combines with all her neighbors, and that thing which she thought set her apart from everyone else, in fact, connected her, closer than kinship, closer than blood, closer than breath, one people in that river of loss. And at last evening falls, and she brings her child down to the cremation ground. And she lets go, not because her grief is less, not because her loss is less, her pain is less, but because every household in that village has blessed her. Every person has taken in her whole story of loss and given her theirs to hold. Every person has blessed her, as the Buddha knew that they would before sending her out. Blessed her by tearing down that wall of isolation, bridging that island of self-reliance, redeeming her back to life again. Nothing changed in her circumstances, nothing changed in the world except how she carried it through the holy work of telling her own story and hearing others. She wrestled and was blessed and went on her way, not with child restored, not with hurt gone, but reconciled. Let evening come, writes the poet Jane Kenyon. Let evening come. Let the light of late afternoon shine through the holes in the barn, moving up the bales as the sun moves down. Let the cricket take up chafing as a woman takes up her needles and her yarn. Let evening come. Let dew collect on the hoe abandoned in long grass. Let stars appear and the moon disclose her silver horn. Let the fox go back to its sandy den and the wind die down. Let the shed go black inside. Let evening come. To the bottle in the ditch, to the scoop in the oats, to the air in the lungs, let evening come. Let it come as it will. And don't be afraid. We are not left comfortless. So let evening come. Amen.
Please stand and join in singing our musical response. Let's sing. All my memory of love hang upon high stars. All the souls I've lost to tears, now the autumn jars. And the air around me here thickens with their song. Sing again their nameless tunes, sing again and strong. Willows in September touch the water clear, set among the rushes tall of the flowing year. Rising up from sunlit paths comes the shadowed side, running toward me silently, love to fortify. Many are the graceful hearts hung upon this tree, and it seems there's room for mine on these branches free. And the sky above the tree, whether wet or bright, is my ease and comforting, my good news and light. You may be seated.
This month, our offering is shared with Mindful Works. It's a social enterprise here in Boulder, Colorado, which provides job training and real employment opportunities to those in recovery from mental illness. This short video shares more about what that looks like.
I love Mindful Works because it lets my creative juices flow.
Mindful Works empowers people to find their voice and trust themselves.
We're working on every piece together, which is amazing.
Whatever is holding you back from working, Mindful Works can meet those needs.
We have supported over 80 program participants along their journey of making work part of their recovery.
As a work readiness program, I've been solidly impressed with what has turned out to be. I've overcome a lot of my fears and reservations about working again.
Mindful Works has made my life better by giving me a community as well as giving me confidence in skills that I just kind of let sit there and giving me a place that I feel like I have purpose.
When people first come in, where their headspace is at, or just like what they think that they can do, versus when they graduate, that growth in people is really special to be able to witness.
Description. For those gathered in person, you can scan the QR code or make a donation as the ushers now pass the baskets. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community.
This living is a duet of grief and wonder. And our work is to take our hearts out of their protective places that keep them safe, but not whole. They do swim, elephants. Indian elephants, they swim in the ocean. They use their trunks like snorkels, and all four legs make this doggy paddle through the water. Our work, in part our work, is to let ourselves be heartbroken enough to find the wonder and see the beauty of this world. Our service ends and that work begins again. We rise in body or in spirit. We'll close in song.